The stars used to shine brightly. Now many of them are dark, cold, silent. Somewhere in the galaxy, on a quiet planet covered in blue mist, an old alien sat alone in a dark room, whispering to his student. "Do you know what happened to the humans?" the old one asked. The student blinked. "Humans? Weren't they just a myth?" The old alien gave a tired smile. "No, child. They were very real, and the galaxy still remembers them. Even now. Long ago, before peace touched the stars, there was fire. Endless war. Planet after planet fell into silence. It was not the humans who started it, but when it began, they were the ones who refused to surrender. While other species begged for safety, the humans did something different. They fought back. They lost their homes. Their cities burned. Their skies turned black. But they kept fighting. Every time the enemy thought they were finished, humanity rose again. They used their anger, their pain, and their love for each other as weapons. No one could understand them. Not really. One general once said, "Humans are not fighting to win. They are fighting because they have nothing left to lose." That was what made them dangerous. In the final years of the Great War, the humans launched something strange, something never seen before. It was called Project Emberfall. No one knew what it really was. All the galaxy knew was that, after Emberfall, the humans disappeared. Just gone. Some believed they died. Others said they hid themselves in secret places. A few said humanity became something greater, something the galaxy could not yet understand. The student leaned forward. "But why? Do people still whisper about them?" The old alien looked up at the stars, his eyes full of fear and wonder. "Because some say they are still out there, waiting, watching, and if they return, the galaxy will never be the same again." Far away, in the emptiness between star systems, a deep space satellite began to blink. It had not blinked in 300 years. A signal pulsed once, then twice, then again. The message was broken, damaged by time and silence. But inside the static, one word came through, sharp and clear: alive. Somewhere, something had survived, and the story was only beginning. The message traveled quietly through space. No sound, no color. Just a soft signal repeating itself every few seconds like a heartbeat. It crossed empty planets, dead stations, and cold stars until it finally reached a small research ship floating near the edge of the galaxy. Inside the ship, a young alien named Teth sat alone. He was not like others of his kind. Most followed orders. Teth followed curiosity. He didn't expect to find anything today. His job was boring, just scan old signals, check coordinates, and report silence. But then something strange appeared on his screen. The signal was weak, very old, and broken by time. Most of it was unreadable. But one part played clearly. Alive. Teth blinked. No way. He played it again. Same word. Same pulse. The signal came from the Ember Zone, a place where no one was allowed to go. It was the place where humans were last seen. The galaxy had closed that part of space long ago. Ships that entered never returned. The maps called it a dead zone, a cursed space. Teth wasn't supposed to scan it. He wasn't even supposed to look at it, but he couldn't stop himself. He tried running the signal through the ship's memory banks. All matches pointed to one thing: human language. His breath caught. It was impossible. Humanity was gone. Everyone said so. They had been erased in the Great War. But now, something was calling from their last known place. Teth opened a secret file he had saved. It was an old recording, a human voice from long ago. The voice was tired but calm. It said, "If you are hearing this, you have reached the edge. Beyond this point there is no map, no rule, no turning back." He had found it by accident 2 years ago during his training. And now, it connected to this signal like two puzzle pieces made for each other. Teth had a choice: report it, and his superiors would erase the signal and tell him to forget or follow it. His hands moved without thinking. He adjusted his course. The ship turned slowly toward the Ember Zone. "Just one look," he whispered. "Then I come back." The stars around him grew darker. The ship's lights dimmed. Instruments began acting strange. Numbers flipped, scanners failed. But the signal grew stronger. It was like the galaxy was trying to push him away, but the signal was pulling him in. His screen flickered once. Then again. A shape appeared in the distance, an old satellite, half broken, spinning slowly. He moved closer. The satellite was covered in dust and burn marks, but it was still sending the message. Alive. Teth stared. How can something like this survive for 300 years? Suddenly, his ship's lights flickered again. Another signal. This time, not from the satellite. It came from the planet below. The surface looked dead, cracked, lifeless. But the signal was new, recent, and it was not just one word this time. It was coordinates. Someone, or something, wanted him to come down. Teth hesitated. He looked around. The stars were silent. Then he whispered, "I came this far." He slowly landed the ship. As the ramp opened and he stepped onto the ground, the wind hit his face. Cold, dry, but breathable. The ruins stretched around him. Broken buildings, old roads, and pieces of machines lost to time. His steps echoed as he walked. The signal led him toward a tall, half-standing tower. Suddenly he felt something. A presence. He turned. Nothing. Then, from the shadows, a figure stepped out. Tall, wearing old human armor. Silent. It didn't speak. It didn't move. Closer, it just looked at him, as if it had been waiting for a very long time. Teth opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say anything, the figure turned and walked away into the ruins. Gone. Teth chased after it, but when he turned the corner, there was no one there. Just the signal, still playing softly behind him, and one more word had been added. Remember. He stood there, heart pounding, not from fear, but from something else. Wonder, hope, and the feeling that his journey was only just beginning. The ruins were quiet again. Teth stood still, eyes searching the shadows. His hand trembled, but not from fear. Something deeper moved inside him. He had seen someone. He was sure of it. A figure in human armor. Alive. Watching him, the signal still played in the background, soft like a heartbeat. Alive. Remember. He followed the direction where the figure had gone. The ground crunched beneath his boots. The buildings around him looked ancient, but somehow untouched by time. It felt like the city was sleeping, waiting. As he walked, he noticed symbols on the walls. Human writing, faded but still clear. Some were words. Others were maps. He took pictures, knowing his people would never believe him. At the edge of the ruins, he found a small dome-shaped shelter. The door opened with a soft hiss, as if it had been waiting too. Inside, everything was quiet. Lights blinked faintly. There was no sound, but the air smelled clean and the dust was thin. Someone had been here recently. He stepped further in. Screens lit up. They didn't show warnings, no danger signs. Just a slow-moving image of the galaxy, spinning peacefully. One screen showed the signal he had followed. Another displayed lines of text in human standard. Then, one line changed. "You are not the first." Teth leaned in closer. "Who's sending this?" There was no answer, just another change on the screen. "Are you ready to see?" Before he could respond, the lights dimmed and the room began to shift. The floor lowered like an elevator. Down into the earth. He stood silently, unsure where he was going. The further he went, the warmer the air became. Soft lights glowed along the walls. The silence wrapped around him like a blanket. It didn't feel cold. It felt careful. When the platform stopped, he stepped into a long hallway. At the end of it stood a clear chamber. Inside, something floated, a pod, sealed, glowing gently with blue light. Inside the pod was a human, a woman. She was asleep, or maybe frozen in time. Her hair floated gently in the liquid. Her hands rested calmly by her side. Her face looked peaceful. Teth felt a strange pull in his chest. He wasn't afraid. He felt honored. Then, the same figure from earlier appeared behind the pod. Not inside it, not a ghost. Real. The same armor. The same silence. He couldn't see the face, it was covered. But the figure raised a hand slowly, pointing at the pod. Teth asked softly, "Who is she?" The figure didn't speak. Instead, it placed its hand on the glass of the pod. A new word appeared on a screen nearby. Leader. Teth stepped forward, eyes locked on the sleeping woman. "Is she the last?" he asked. This time, the screen changed again. The first. Something deep inside him shifted. The stories he had grown up with were wrong. Humanity wasn't gone. They had hidden something, someone, here. Not a weapon, not a machine, a person. But why? Another message appeared. "She holds the key." He turned to the figure. "What key? Why are you showing me this?" The figure didn't answer. Instead, it reached toward a console and pressed a single button. The walls around them came alive with images. Old footage. Cities before the war. People smiling. Children playing. Then warships leaving Earth. Then the fires. And finally, the way scattering. Millions of tiny lights shooting into the stars. They had left behind a map, but not one made of stars. A map made of people. Teth understood. They didn't run, he whispered. They planted themselves across the galaxy. The figure turned toward him. For the first time, it removed the helmet. She was human, older than she looked, tired eyes but strong. Her voice was quiet. "You were the first to follow the signal," he nodded, unsure if he was dreaming. "You're not here by mistake," she said. "You were chosen." "Chosen for what?" he asked. "To help her wake up." Teth looked at the pod again. The woman inside seemed to glow brighter. "She's been sleeping for a long time," the other woman said. "When she wakes, everything will change." Teth stepped closer to the console. "What do I do?" The woman handed him a small device. Simple, round, glowing. "Place it on the pod," she said. "If you believe she should return." He held it for a long moment. No one had seen a human in hundreds of years, and now he held the choice to bring one back. He looked up at the stars showing on the screen above, quiet, watching. Then, with steady hands, he placed the device on the pod. A soft hum began. The lights pulsed gently. The woman beside him said nothing more. She turned and walked into the shadows once again. And this time, she didn't come back. Teth stood beside the pod, the hum growing, stronger. Something was beginning, and the galaxy, silent as ever, seemed to hold its breath. The pod began to glow brighter. Soft light filled the chamber, warm and alive. Teth stepped back, watching in silence. The hum was steady now, like the sound of breath slowly returning after a long sleep. Tiny lines of light moved across the pod's surface, unlocking ancient systems one by one. He could feel the change in the air. It was no longer heavy with silence. It felt like hope, like history waiting to rise again. The woman inside the pod did not move, but her fingers twitched gently. A small screen beside the pod blinked to life. It showed her name, Commander Elia Varn. Teth read it softly. "Commander." She had been someone important. Not a soldier, not a ruler, a guide, a leader. The pod released a soft mist. The chamber lights turned warmer, almost golden. A voice filled the room. Calm, soft, female. It was not the woman in the pod. It was an old recording. If this chamber is opening, then someone has followed the trail. That means it's time. Teth held his breath. The voice continued. We were scattered by force, not by choice. We left pieces of ourselves behind. Records, shelters, whispers. We knew we couldn't win by staying. So we did what humans always do. We adapted. We survived. Even if it meant disappearing. The screen changed again. It now showed thousands of dots across a galaxy map. Each one pulsing slowly. Teth stepped closer. Are those? The voice answered as if it had heard him. Those are seeds, human settlements, hidden, sleeping, waiting for the right signal. He stared at the lights, so many. All silent. But now one was active, this one. You, the voice said, are the first to wake us. The pod hissed louder now. Steam lifted gently from the edges. A soft sound like a heartbeat echoed across the room. Then her eyes opened. Commander Aaliyah Varn blinked slowly. Her gaze met Teth's. For a moment she looked confused, then focused, then calm. You're not human, she said quietly. No, Teth replied, but I followed your signal. She sat up slowly, her voice steady despite the long sleep. Then it worked. Teth didn't know what to say. He watched as she placed her feet gently on the floor. No fear, no panic, just quiet strength. We didn't know if anyone would hear us, she said. We hoped someone would care enough to try. I had to know the truth, Teth said. Commander Varn gave him a small smile. Then you've done more than most. She walked to the console and touched it gently. The map zoomed in. One of the pulsing dots brightened. That's the next seed, she said. We need to wake them. We? Teth asked. She looked at him again. You've come this far. I can't do this alone. He nodded slowly. I'll help. As the chamber adjusted to her presence, systems began turning on. Machines, memory files, lights. The space, once frozen in time, now felt alive again. Why now? Teth asked. Why not sooner? She looked at the galaxy map. Because the galaxy wasn't ready. We needed someone from the outside. Someone who would see us not as danger, but as memory, as a chance. You were waiting for a stranger, he said. She nodded. Not just any stranger. One with a heart. Outside the chamber, the ruins stirred gently in the wind. The sky above the planet began to shift color. Faint light flickered in the clouds, like stars waking up. Others will feel it now, she said. The quiet won't last. What happens next? Teth asked. She turned to him with calm eyes. Now, we find the rest of us, one by one, piece by piece. A signal blinked again on the screen. Another place. Another chance. Teth looked out the chamber door. He didn't know what the galaxy would do when it learned that humanity still lived, but he knew this much. The story was no longer a memory. It was a beginning. The ship rose gently from the old planet, lifting through quiet clouds that had not been disturbed in centuries. Inside the cockpit, Teth sat beside Commander Aaliyah Varn. She stared out the window with calm eyes, but he could see the weight behind them, like she was remembering every corner of a galaxy that had forgotten her. Neither spoke for a while. The stars outside looked peaceful, but both of them knew the silence wouldn't last forever. Ilya pointed to the map glowing on the console. There, she said softly. That's where the next signal should be. Teth nodded, but something troubled him. Why didn't the others wake before me? The signals were there, hidden, but not gone. She leaned back slowly. Because the galaxy didn't want them found. He looked at her, confused. Ilya continued. Long ago, when the war ended, Many feared us, what we could become, what we might do if we survived. So they didn't just erase us, they erased the idea of us. But not completely, Teth said. No, we hid too well, she replied with a small smile. But we also trusted that someday someone would search. Not for power, not for control, but for truth. Teth stared at the star system coming into view. A small moon rotated around a gas giant. It looked empty at first glance, gray and quiet. But deep below the surface, something pulsed. The signal. They landed near a crater with a hidden entrance. The path down was long and curved, like a spiral staircase carved from smooth stone. As they walked, the walls lit up softly, reacting to their presence. Elia paused, running her fingers across a symbol etched in the wall. I remember this place, she said. We called it the Lantern. Teth followed her deeper into the structure. At the end of the path stood a door. No buttons, no locks, just a panel with a handprint. She pressed her palm gently against it. The door opened with a quiet sigh. Inside, the space looked like a library mixed with a machine. Rows of memory pods lined the walls. Lights blinked slowly on each one. Some were dark. Others flickered with soft golden light. She moved to the center of the room and activated the console. A soft voice filled the air. Male. Calm. Commander Elia. Identity confirmed. Welcome back. Teth stepped forward, looking at the pods. Are they people? Elia nodded. Each one is a story, a life, a part of our memory. He asked carefully, can they be woken? Not all, she said gently. But some were waiting for this moment. Just like me. She touched one of the golden pods. The light brightened. A new hum filled the room. They're not just survivors, she said. They're witnesses. Teth watched as the pod released its seal. Inside was a woman, older, calm, dressed in a uniform different from Elia's. Her eyes opened slowly, and when she saw Elia, she smiled faintly. Elia, the woman said, voice weak but clear. You really did it. Elia nodded. I wasn't the one who found us. He did. The woman turned her gaze to Teth. You're not human. No, he said. But I believe you should be remembered. She smiled again. Then you've done something rare. More pods began to glow. The room filled with a low, peaceful sound, like memories stretching after a long sleep. Elia turned to Teth. Each person here knows something we've lost. We didn't just hide bodies. We hid knowledge, music, language, pieces of earth, pieces of ourselves. He looked around, slowly understanding. It's not just about waking people. It's about waking everything. Yes, she said. Humanity is not just flesh. It's memory, feeling, story. Teth felt a chill, not of fear, but awe. Outside the chamber, the moon's surface remained quiet. But far above, a satellite shifted its angle. It had noticed the activity below. It sent a signal, small, quiet, but fast. Elsewhere in the galaxy, eyes opened, sensors blinked. Not all were friendly. Elia turned toward the exit. We'll have to move quickly now. Some won't be happy to know we still exist. But we're not hiding anymore, Teth said firmly. No, she agreed. Now we rise. Together, they helped the waking survivors prepare. Some were confused. Others simply cried. A few, like the woman in the first pod, stood strong and ready. We were never meant to be forgotten, she whispered. As the small base filled with light and life once more, a message was sent out. Not loud, not bold, but steady, just 4 words, we are still here. The stars looked different now. Teth sat alone on the observation deck of the small cruiser, watching them pass like soft candles floating in the dark. Behind him, quiet footsteps approached. He didn't need to turn. He knew it was Elia. She stood. Beside him, her arms crossed gently, eyes on the same stars. We've activated 9 seeds. she said quietly. There are thousands more. Teth nodded, each one with a story. Silence settled between them, but it was not empty. It was the kind of silence that held meaning, like standing in a library full of unread books. Below them, on the nearest planet, the newly awakened survivors were building again. Not cities, not warships, but archives, schools, gardens, places meant for remembering. Do you think they'll come for us? Teth asked, still not looking away from the stars. Ilya took a long breath. Some already are. He turned to her, but her face was calm. We've been noticed, she said. Some are curious, some afraid. He looked down at the star map, blinking slowly across the glass. The dots were spreading, more active than ever. More lights were turning on each day. But they'll find something else too, she added. What's that? She smiled softly. They'll find that humanity didn't just survive. We changed. We grew in silence. We remembered what matters. Teth nodded slowly. And if they ask why we came back, she looked at him. We never left. We just waited for the galaxy to listen. He thought for a moment. I used to think I was just a scientist, curious, looking for answers. And now? Now I feel like a bridge, he said, between the present and what was lost. Below them, the survivors were beginning to send messages to the stars. They weren't warnings, they weren't claims, they were songs, old Earth music, poems, children's stories, simple things, gentle things. Across the galaxy, ships slowed down near the signals. Curious minds paused their journey. Entire species listened quietly to a voice they thought was gone. Not a shout, just a whisper that said, We're still here. Ilya placed her hand on the window. Her reflection looked younger somehow, full of quiet strength. We were scattered, she said, but we were never broken. Teth turned to her. Where do we go next? She tapped a blinking point on the map. Far, unknown, sleeping, there, she said. The 10th seed. We called it Haven. It was the last place we touched before we left Earth. He looked at her with quiet curiosity. Is Earth still there? She paused. I don't know, she said honestly. But maybe, someday, we'll find out. The ship's engines began to hum softly, preparing for the jump. The stars blurred slightly, as if leaning closer to listen. Teth whispered almost to himself, Do you think the galaxy will accept you now? Ilya gave him a thoughtful look. It's not about being accepted. It's about being remembered, the right way. Then she smiled. Not with pride, but with peace. Let them tell stories, she said. But let those stories carry truth, not fear, not fire. Just who we really were. The ship lifted quietly into the dark, heading toward the next memory, the next voice, the next light. And as it vanished into the stars, the galaxy listened. Because even after all the time, all the silence, and all the forgetting, humanity had returned, not to rule, not to claim, but simply to be known again.